Hello again, everyone. Tonight I'm probably going to end up doing quite a few of these videos. I have a lot of stuff written up. I just haven't really had a chance to get the videos done and the information out there. Got some family things going on, and these grandbabies and stuff right now, it's a time that they really need me, and they just need that extra love, and the little one needs those extra cuddles and Minnie Mouse out the ass. Oh my god, I'm so sick of Minnie Mouse. But with that said, this video is about how time does not heal all wounds. And right now, I know my daughter and my granddaughter and grandson are going through something that time probably will not heal. It gets better. Things do get better, but not everything heals. And I will be doing a video at some point. I don't know. I'm probably going to get through this week and maybe next week, or who knows, I may just get the wind and do it tomorrow. I'm very, very unpredictable at this time, but I'm going to be doing a video on how suicide affects the surviving members of the family or the community in which the suicide takes place. There's not really a lot of information out there on how to cope with somebody committing suicide after being an abuser. There's a lot out there on the victim being suicidal, but not a lot on when the abuser is. So I'm going to be working on that so that I can dedicate my time to that specific thing. I'm trying to get a lot of these other videos out. My upload time is crazy. Like, just this little bit of amount of time that I've already been talking, the upload time is already probably going to be like 20 or 30 minutes. So by the time I actually read this information, I'm looking at maybe a 12-hour upload time. Possibly. Sometimes I have good luck and it goes through within, like an hour or so. But these videos, I am going to be uploading them, and I guess they'll just post whenever they post at this point. Can't really help it. But back onto this topic. Abuse can continue to have lasting effects on victims even long after they escape. When healthy relationships end, there may be sadness, anger, guilt, or regret. But eventually, both parties move on. After all, as the saying goes, time heals all wounds. But that is not the case for survivors of domestic violence. After enduring abuse at the hands of a supposed loved one, moving on can especially be difficult. Fear and stress are natural consequences of abuse, and these stressors can increase one's risk for health problems while exacerbating existing health issues. In fact, medical research estimates as much as 90% of disease and illness to be stress related. As a result, survivors need more time to help heal their wounds, no matter what type of abuse someone inflicts. The consequences on a survivor's physical and mental health can show up long after the abuse has ended. These impacts can be reduced by finding support from an experienced trauma informed advocate or therapist. Some of the long term physical effects. Physical abuse includes hitting, punching, kicking, shoving, strangling, hair pulling, and more. It can range from mild to severe, disfiguring to fatal. About 75% of female domestic violence survivors and 48% of male survivors have been injured due to physical violence by an intimate partner. While most injuries heal outwardly, they sometimes have lasting effects internally. Acute injuries can manifest into chronic conditions such as arthritis, following trauma to joints, neurological deficiencies due to strangulation, and traumatic brain injury from a blow to the head, among others. Many people experience trauma to the head, having been shoved against the wall or had objects thrown at them. One single incident can cause damage, but typically it is done again and again. Violence also has negative effects on pregnancy. The risk for preterm birth, miscarriage, or low birth weight, which can lead to ongoing physical and mental health problems for the child later on. Long term psychological effects. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That saying may have worked in childhood, but it is a far cry from reality in the world of domestic violence. 60% of survivors report symptoms of depression. In the throes of abuse, a survivor usually experiences overwhelming feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, which have a profound effect on their emotional well being. It's no wonder that abuse survivors experience mental health disorders at a higher rate than the average population. Emotional and psychological abuse are incredibly pervasive. 95% of the people who contacted the National Domestic Hotline in 2020 stated that they were experiencing emotional abuse. Psychological abuse isn't as easy to identify as physical abuse. It can involve the following tactics: bullying, degradation, name calling, a pattern of lying, gaslighting, coercive control, threats of physical abuse. Psychological abuse can take as much of a toll on one's health as physical abuse, especially if it goes untreated, and that is all too common for survivors of domestic violence who can't access treatment during the relationship or decide not to open up about their experiences because of guilt, shame, or some other reason. Psychological abuse can result in feelings of worthlessness and low self esteem, inability to trust, anxiety, depression, issues, insomnia, chronic headaches, suicidal thoughts or attempts. Damage to a survivor's psyche doesn't heal like a broken bone. Mental health disorders take time to treat, and that's only if you have access to ongoing mental health care. Domestic violence survivors are at increased risk for mental health disorders even after they escape the abuse. Several studies have confirmed a positive relationship between domestic violence and depression, anxiety, and other mental illnesses. In fact, up to 84% of female domestic survivors experience PTSD, and as many as three-quarters have depression, according to Southern Illinois University research. And the longer you experience abuse, the higher your chances are of experiencing depression. There is also a high correlation between PTSD and domestic violence. Nearly all survivors display some symptoms of PTSD, which is characterized by flashbacks, intrusive imagery, nightmares, anxiety, emotional numbing, insomnia, hypervigilance, and avoidance of traumatic triggers. There's also long-term social effects. Another tactic abusers commonly use is isolation, or slowly building a wall between their partner and their partner support system. Many limit who their partners see, using coercive tactics and jealousy as justification. This can lead to a permanent rift between the survivor and his or her friends and family, and it can be difficult to build a new support system when trust is a problem, which is the case for many survivors. Even religious communities may alienate survivors by advising them to stay with an abuser due to the belief that separation or divorce is wrong, no matter the circumstances. And there is some long-term effects on children. It is not only the survivor who suffers. Children who live in homes where abuse occurs are likely to contend with plenty of social difficulties too. They are 50% more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol later in life, and 74% more likely to commit a violent crime. They also face cognitive learning and developmental challenges at the same rate as children who are abused themselves. Younger children have less defense mechanisms and just want the violence to stop, whereas school age children understand the dynamics and can become withdrawn, have trouble concentrating, difficulty with peer relationships, and experience conflicts in school. Adolescents sometimes end up running away. Boys who witness abuse are 10 times more likely to become abusive adults, and girls are more likely to experience domestic abuse later in life. However, witnessing DV as a child does not guarantee a life of violence. Intervention is a key factor in preventing the effects. Some children that witness abuse or substance abuse, bullying, different things in the home as they grow up, sometimes they do go the complete opposite way. Take me for an example. I was raised where my grandfather was very abusive to my grandmother up until the time of their divorce. The father on my birth certificate was very abusive to my mother and me. And I also know that his first wife, before my mom, he was abusive to her. And my half brother and sister, step brother and sister, he's on my birth certificate, but he's not my biological father. So I don't really know what that would make his other kids. But anyway, they're my brother and sister growing up. I know the woman that he married after my mom, he was abusive to her, and I still had visitation. I would have to go and I would witness that. Then they got a divorce, and then he married another one, And that's when more of the abuse towards me started. But he was equally abusive to her and her 4 children. One of her girls, which grew up being, my stepsister, is simply just my sister. She was always there to protect me. And at 9, 10, 11 years old, I knew what abuse I had been through and what was happening to me. But at that age, I didn't know that she was taking more of it on herself to save me. I found that out later in life. In fact, just about 3 or 4 years ago. I have never been abusive to anyone that I've been in a relationship with. I do not like to slam cabinet doors. I do not like to slam doors at all. I will not raise my voice to a partner unless, they're like across the yard and we're mowing or something. And of course, I have to raise my voice to be heard. But it's always, you want me to grab you a pop when I go in the house kind of thing. It's never, you're not doing this right situation. I grew up where my cousins were always drunk and on drugs, and that dad on the birth certificate, he did pills. He was a truck driver, so he was always popping pills to stay awake or whatever. But I don't even like smoking pot. Like, I had my medical card. I don't have a problem. I had my medical card for like 2 years, and I think I went to the dispensary twice and maybe smoked half of that, if that. I'm one of the few that go the opposite way. And I say a few because there's less of us than the ones who do turn towards abuse and drugs and just keeping the cycle going from what they saw, what they witnessed growing up in life. And I've always thought back, like, I know that my uncle was pretty abusive to my aunt. I never really seen him raise his hands to her or anything, but then again, behind closed doors, who knows? But as far as trying to control her money, controlling who she saw, even like in the women's group at church, he had the whole church like uprooted and changed the whole way it was running for years and years. And he even got the men's group to be in the same room as the women's group because he was afraid that she was going to, I guess, say something or try to get help with leaving or whatever. And, as a kid, I seen it. I thought it was weird, but I didn't understand it. From the outside looking in as a kid, it just kind of looked like, oh, he loves her. He wants to spend every minute with her. And that gave me kind of a false view of what love is. So to reverse that, no matter who I'm with, I've always been, you need your time, I need my time. I don't want to be up your ass all the time. I don't want you up my ass. We have family time, we have us time, and then we have me time. And I know that that stems back because of the isolation tactics that my grandfather did to my grandmother, that my dad on the birth certificate did to my mother, what I seen with his future wives, the situation with my aunt and my uncle. And I don't even try to turn those things around and make them different in my life. It's just how my life has played out. I have always been, well, growing up I was the black sheep. Now I'm just kind of the emo rainbow sheep of the family, but it's like everything that I know is right is the opposite of what I seen growing up. And there's a lot of us like that. But the majority makes us few. The majority, they do turn out to have legal problems, substance abuse, being abusive to their partners or to their children or to the family pets. And it's a vicious cycle that needs to change. Time literally needs to stop so that as a society we can remake the quote unquote rules of how we are programmed from birth. We need to take the time to help those who are struggling to overcome the things that I just went over when I was reading the paper. When we see somebody struggling emotionally, mentally, physically, we can always lend them a supportive hand. We can help them find their place back in the world, in a world without abuse, without the struggles, and make sure that they get the emotional and mental support that they need. It may take 2 or 3 hours sitting down and finding a therapist or finding an advocate or finding someone that will just listen to them. But finding that one person that will listen and make a difference is so worth it. And if it's you that is struggling with this, I am more than happy to help you find somebody that will help guide you in the right path to overcoming the trauma that you have lived. And once you are able to find that person or that group, time can heal a lot of things. But time doesn't heal all wounds. That's the sad reality of domestic violence. Much love, everybody.